This is Goku-san DBZ and welcome back for a new top 20 list. This time we are looking at, consider this recommendations, top 20 must-play indie games. So, with that said, we have several honorable mentions. Let me know in the future if you'd like me to do another one of these recommendation lists of indie games, as I try my best to praise and give the love and respect to indie games that more people need to, at least in my opinion. Of honorable mentions, first we have a recently released indie game that is very unique unto itself. It definitely has its own niche, which is something you need in order to stand out from the many different similarity games of genre and subgenres in indie sphere. Um, Honorable mentions, first up, To the Moon. A great indie 2D game that feels like it came straight from the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. Great music, however, and a very interesting story, unlike many other indie games out there. It does have its own distinctive feel. Also, a pretty relatively recent release, honorable mention, Cut, or rather Cult of the Lamb. A very interesting game I recommend to more people. Also, of course, a classic, hard to believe, was basically created by one person, that being Stardew Valley. Also, if you want something that's definitely will hit you somewhat emotionally and stuff, but actually has definitely some depth too. Next honorable mention goes to Spiritfarer, which is a pretty solid game in my opinion. Also, if you want a game with a higher difficulty curve and stuff and sort of Metroidvania inspired, next honorable mention, Rain World. If you haven't tried, I recommend, as right now on Nintendo Switch eShop, it is half off. It's like $9.99, a very reasonable price in my opinion to try it out. Also, honorable mention, some just to help unwind and relax a little. Next honorable mention goes to Untitled Goose Game, which is a very fun game to play on occasion. If you just don't want to play something super serious and get your mind off the stress and stuff, this is actually a great game in my opinion. Also, honorable mention, Thames Fighting Herds, which of course is an indie fighting game, obviously inspired from specific other things, but the fact also that it has rollback netcode definitely helps it for an indie fun game, and you can get it, I believe, new with the DLC included. It's like $29.99 or something. Very affordable, very reasonable as a budget title. I recommend it actually. Last honorable mention is a more of a puzzle game of sorts, using in its mechanics gravity and things in order to get from one side to the other. It's a puzzle platformer of sorts, but it's more predominantly puzzle inspired. But it's quite interesting and quite fun. You can beat the game, at least my first run I think took me just a little over an hour. Second run I managed to beat in like under 50 minutes. So, and you can usually find it on sale for a few dollars. So it's definitely worth it. I like the color, I love the music and everything. Last honorable mention goes to Etherborn. Coming in at number 20 is a great 2D more or less style game. It has great, I think, characters overall. I definitely like the story, the world is interesting, and I enjoy for the most part, and more people need to give this game a shot. Coming at 20 is Disco Elysium, a superb indie game that I highly recommend to many more people, and the fact it's available on pretty much all platforms makes it easier for people to approach and try out. Next up is a game that I believe new is only something like $7.99, like $8. Though when I picked it up on sale, I think I paid like $3 for it, so $2.99. It is more or less a, well, basically an indie platformer, but I like the art style, the music, and the main character, and I really enjoy it. It's a great simplistic indie platformer, but I really like as I am a longtime fan of platformers. Coming in number 19 is a game called Evans Remains. If you've not tried it, I do highly recommend it. Coming in at number 18 is a more recent one. It is a great indie roguelike game. If you like roguelike style games combat wise and everything, and it has an interesting story overall, which really helps as a big fan of mythology. I rather enjoy this game. Number 18 of games I recommend, Hades. Coming in at 17 is also a little bit more recent game that was released just last year. Now, its normal asking price is like, I believe it's like $39.99 or something, like $40. You can also get it for around the same price range physical for like PS5, or if you have like premium PS Plus, you can also just play the game through premium membership, which is a perk. And if you are a cat person, you will love this game. If you're a dog person, you may not. But with that said, I love the art style, and the fact is interesting getting to play as a cat. Coming at 17 is Stray. Coming in at 16, if you like Souls-like games, combat-wise, but want something with a little bit of its own unique spin on some of the formula and everything, a superb, great indie game, which I believe at normal price you can get for some like $20, or you can get like the complete version for like 30 or something, with all DLC included. A very reasonable price game, and for being an indie game, graphically speaking, it's pretty good. I would say it's somewhere between like Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. It looks good. I like the night designs and everything. It's actually quite fun. You can beat the game in several hours, well, minus the expansion. But still, it's definitely worth the price, and it's quite fun. Coming in next at number 16 is the game Mortal Shell, which I constantly will recommend this game as it is a great Soul-style game, though not made by From Software, but rather a smaller indie dev team. Still, it has great combat. That is where this game exceeds that, and with its own unique spin on the formula. Coming in at 15 is, of course, an all-time classic platformer, and that being Inside. A very good, very somewhat definitely uneasy and creepy at times game, definitely. Still, nevertheless, Inside, I love the art style and everything, the design overall, and the way the game plays is very interesting and does give it its own unique spin on things. And that is what you need in order to stand out definitely in the indie game scene. Coming at 14 is a game that needs no real introduction. It is a indie platformer, but with very hard multi-stair or stage bosses. Definitely very high difficulty curve, but one of the cool things is the fact you can play co-op mode, which is cool. The music is great. I love the animation style. At 14 is Cuphead. If you've not played it and you want a decent challenge, Cuphead is the perfect game for you. If you don't want a pretty high challenging platformer, well, Cuphead may not be for you. Coming in at 13 is a game I always constantly highly recommend. It is done by the great Lucas Pope. Coming at 13 is Return of the Obra Dinn, which of course also created Papers, Please, another superb game. And seriously, if you've not checked out any of Lucas Pope's games, I do recommend both. Plus, check out the documentary if you want to know more about Lucas Pope. Also, number 12, a great indie fighting game where you can play with multiple different characters from different indie games like Isaac from The Binding of Isaac, as well as you can play with characters like Shovel Knight and many others. Coming at number 12 is Blade Strangers. A really interesting but really cool, nifty little game, which I love the art style and everything. I love that sort of just a crossover of multiple different characters from many different indie games. Coming in at number 11, needs no real introduction, created by Toby Fox, and that being the cult classic at 11 is Undertale. Great game that I can't recommend enough to anyone, as is a game that will definitely mess with you emotionally and stuff, and you can get quite invested in the game. I love the story. The world is very unique and very different from many other indie games out there. Undertale has its own unique spin with its art style, with its overall character designs and everything. It really is one of, I consider, the pinnacle games of the indie scene. And definitely one of the few that really broke through and made it big into the mainstream. Coming in at number 10 is arguably just about one of easily my favorite walking sim games out there. Mostly because of the story and everything I found interesting. You can beat this game in like 2 hours, but still, it's a great experience in my opinion. Coming in at 10 is What Remains of Edith Finch. This is a game I've been recommending for a few years now that I think more people need to give a chance to this game, as the story's actually good, the voice acting work is actually solid compared to some indie stuff out there. Coming at number 9 is arguably, I think, probably just about the best indie developed fighting game. I love the blues and jazz, nightclub style music and big band stuff. Is what helps really give it its own unique style besides its art style and character designs. Coming in at number 9 is Skullgirls Second Encore. Coming in at number 8 is arguably one of my earliest indie games I played. Coming in at number 8 is the great indie platformer Limbo, which of course the same people would end up also making Inside. Also coming in at number 7 is a tie between two great games of the same series, of course, that being Ori. Coming in at number 7 is a tie between Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori Will of the Wisps. Coming in at number 6 is a great game if you're an old school fan of great Metroidvania games, or rather, just great uh, Castlevania games, specifically Symphony of the Night and others. This is a game perfect for you. At 6 is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Though, if you get a chance, also check out Curse of the Moon 1 and 2. Coming in at number 5 is a indie game that I highly recommend. Really cool how you travel from floating island to floating island. Great puzzles I really enjoy. Also meeting these like ancients, animal spirits and stuff is pretty cool. And the fact you can transform into a bird to get around from island to island. The music is also great as well. I will constantly keep mentioning, and by the way, this game I believe is like $1.99 right now on eShop. So this is a game I do actually highly recommend. I think it's perfect for the Switch. Coming in at number 5 is Air Memories of Old. Coming in at number 4, you hear the music in the background coming from, is easily in my top favorite indie games of all time, and probably always will be. It is a gorgeous game. The music, the art style, everything is wonderful. For me, coming in at number 4 of games I highly recommend checking out, number 4 goes to Journey. Coming in at number 3 is a great game if you like games like, say, Scarlet Nexus, as well as games like Persona 5 Strikers and stuff like that. You will like this. This is a great indie style game where you travel to another world, sort of like in Persona and other games. Uh, I love the animation style, and it is a game developed by an indie team based out of Taiwan. This is a great game. It recently got a sequel release, but I do highly recommend this game as it's on sale a lot. At 3 is Dusk Diver. Next, coming at number 2, is an all-time classic, and yes, technically this game is an indie game, and it is a more or less a first-person viewpoint puzzle game. And just remember the meme from this game: the cake is a lie. Coming at number 2 goes to Portal. Yes, Portal is technically considered an indie game because it was developed and made by a small team who ended up managing to get Valve to distribute it through Steam, as well as, of course, in the Orange Box on console to introduce many more people to the game, and it remains one of my favorite games of all time. Whether it be the very annoying but great villain GLaDOS, or other things, and of course the multiple different mentions throughout the game to Half-Life. Coming in at number one is indeed, even though it's the best-selling, most successful game of all time, it is technically an indie game, or it was, but still qualifies. And that was done by the studio Mojang, which later on would be purchased and bought by Microsoft. Coming at number one shouldn't really be too much of a surprise to anyone that knows me by now. Coming in at number one of indie games I recommend checking out and playing, one goes to Minecraft. But with that said, I'll see y'all next time. Stay safe and tell me what your thoughts are. What are some indie games you recommend, or indie games on this list maybe that you haven't tried, or you're interested in trying out with its own unique spin on things. But with that said, stay safe out there. See you again soon enough. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.